Welcome to the Church Answers Podcast. My name is Thom Rayner. I am with my co-host, Jess Rayner. Yes, same last name. And he'll be with us a whole lot in the future. And maybe almost all of them, every now and then he won't be able to be here. But for the most part, Jess, you are secure on the Church Answers Podcast. Once on the Church Answers Podcast, always. It's called the Perseverance of the Podcast.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know what I was signing up for, but hey, this sounds great. I'm excited.
We are glad to have you here. Hey, all of you YouTubers, thank you for being here. Give us a thumbs up or just subscribe to us. And those of you who are listening on your favorite podcasting app, give us a like, a review. Tell us that you are there, and we would greatly appreciate it. We're going to talk about growing a church in a singular way. Not that there is a singular way to grow a church, but growing a church through a pastor's class. I've done it. I've watched Jess do it. I've watched a lot of pastors do it. And we're going to talk about that. There's no one way, but we're going to talk about some of the aspects of it anyway that might help your church. As always, please remember Cheney and Associates. I know the nice lady at the beginning of this podcast talked all about her, him, them, right? I know she did, right? And incredible organization. They are the CPA for the church. Over 1,100 current church customers, from small churches to mega churches. They can do it all for you, folks. So go to the link, look up Cheney and Associates, and find out all about them. They're the best. Steve Cheney's the best, and I love Cheney and Associates. Okay, Jess, the pastor's class. Let's just talk about the way you do it. It is not the way to do it, but it's one of the ways to do it. So talk about your pastor's class, what you're trying to do with it, and just give us some of the results so far.
Yeah. I'm doing two. I'm doing one and have done a previous one. And it might be good just to kind of say, what is a pastor's class? What do you mean by that? That's probably a good starting point for some listeners. The idea is a class that the pastor leads. I know that seems like self-explanatory, but maybe not. It's a class that the pastor is investing into, again, assuming a local church here, investing into the local church. I think this is probably that something has been done for a while in the church, maybe not with quite the intentionality that we're talking about today, but there's typically a Sunday night or Wednesday night traditionally that it's been held where a pastor leads the church in some effort. What we're talking about today is a little bit more intentionality behind what the pastor is leading. So I'll start with the one that I started last year, and it yielded some additional results this year. I sat down and just basically threw it out to my church, who would like to become a community group leader, and that's our small group terminology that we use, community groups, and had 4 different families represented, so about 8 people in the class, just to kind of just anyone who's interested. And so I started with just that. We had a need for some immediate needs in the church to raise up new community group leaders. Obviously, there's a whole lot of discussion on community group leaders and how you raise them up. Our situation at the moment was, hey, we had a need right away. And so we had around 8 different adults sign up to begin this class. And so it was very intentional. It was very focused. It had a specific purpose. It had a specific time limit. It had a specific study method, very outlined. And the whole idea of this particular class was leadership development. And I think, the other class that I started recently is a spiritual development class, a spiritual growth class. And so
All right,
I think,
let me pause for just a
yeah,
moment on the one that you had where you were developing leaders. Is that the one where you used Kevin Mills' book, Leading a
it
Small
is.
Group?
Yeah. How to lead a healthy small group,
I
which
want to
there's
give
a ton of great.
I want to give a shout out that book. You said it's one of the best you've used, right?
It is. He did a fantastic job. It absolutely is one of the best books I have found on leading a healthy small group. It addresses a lot of these little nuances that maybe you don't think about a lot. And to that end, those community group leaders started new community groups, and they have gone back and said everything you said was true. And I didn't tell them it was Kevin because I didn't want to, I wanted to take a little bit of the credit, but it was Kevin. It was what Kevin said. It's a fantastic book.
And we have a resource where he teaches as well. So I just want to mention that because I thought I remembered that you used that for equipping those particular leaders.
I did. I actually use the book before this class came out. But yes, that is the book we used.
All right. And then what are you doing now?
So out of that, we end up launching new community groups. And by the way, you talk about the success rate of that class where I was being that pastor's class teaching new community groups. End up launching 4 or 5 new community groups, and it absolutely blew up in our church. And it was
Mhm.
crazy. We had over 50% of our Sunday morning attendance sign up for these new groups. And these new groups are huge, right? I mean, they're way bigger than what should be in a community group, but it just showed the result of the pastor's class. And the pastor's class I'm doing now is a men's specific discipleship class. I'm telling men in particular, what does it mean to pursue God? And so this is more of a spiritual growth class, where the other one was a leadership development class. And you talk about the power of this, talking about the power of the pastor's class. I had one of the guys in the group walk up to me and say, "Hey, by the way, the only reason I signed up for this class," and you can take it for what, if it's good or bad. He said, "The only reason I signed up for this class is because you were teaching it. And if you felt like it was important for the church, then I felt like it was important for me to be there." So it was
That's
a
a
lot of
great
that
word.
weight. Yeah, it was a lot of that weight of the fact that when the church leader leads it, it adds intentionality, it adds purpose, it adds a little bit of a weight than maybe some other traditional classes.
So let's go back to 1993. You were 5 years old?
I was older than that. 8.
Okay. You were born in, oh, yeah, yeah,
85.
yeah. 85. 88 is when I graduated. I get all my numbers mixed up. So 93, you're in Birmingham, Green Valley. I'm teaching a pastor's class, taught 3 consecutive years. You know how I advertise for it?
I was 8. I wouldn't know.
Newspaper, newspaper ads.
Okay.
There were no social media then. Zuckerberg and Twitter or X and all of those that followed were hardly a fantasy at that time. So I put ads in the Birmingham News, and
Okay.
the little ad said, "Learn the entire Bible in 1 year, whether you are a scholar or a beginner. Everyone welcome." And I had to do it in the worship center because
Okay.
we had well over 100 that most of them stuck with it for 52 weeks.
Wow.
66 books in 52 weeks. And
Wow.
great attendance. And we invested in some material for them. And I did that 3 years in a row as the fastest growth engine that we had. So
Hmm.
that was my pastor's class. So I wish I could do it today, like Facebook or in fact, I started a community group at your church using Facebook to get people there. I need to do that more. But the reality, I'm not the pastor though, but I did use media to try
Yeah.
to get people there. So that was my story. And your oldest brother Sam, hasn't done a pastor's class per se. He does it on Wednesday night with senior adults,
Hmm.
but he took the entire church through the Bible in 52 weeks,
Yeah. Yeah.
66 books in 52 weeks.
And that so when we talk about a pastor's class, there's two, not two primary, there's two predominant methods of leadership. I think you talk about positional leadership and influential leadership. This class kind of hits on both of that. Some people want to go like that guy. It's just because I was the pastor. He says, if the pastor's doing it, I feel like I should be there. There's also this influential element as well, that you can have influential leadership. And so people are drawn to that depending on the method of leadership, why you're doing it. You use it for evangelism. I've used it for leadership development, for spiritual growth. You use it for evangelism. Just spending time developing something intentional that your church needs, and the pastor leading it can yield a ton of positive results.
Hey, one of the people I baptized was a guy by the name of Chris Stewart. You know his name?
I do. I do. And speaking of that, when you said 93 in Birmingham, you know where my mind went? 1992
Mhm.
national championship for Alabama. That's what I remember.
Oh, oh yeah,
But I know
yeah.
where you're going with the name Chris Stewart.
Yeah, the voice of Alabama football and basketball. He was one of our church members, and I baptized him. And man, anyway, I'm going down memory lane just a little too much because Chris is obviously a lot younger than I am. So the pastor's class, yes, it's really a good way to reach people. And you brought up a very good point. Sometimes it's for discipleship, sometimes it's for equipping, sometimes it's for leadership development, and sometimes it is for evangelism.
Right.
And I guess that is a point that we need to conclude on because we're about to wrap this one up. Uh, know why you're teaching it, not just what you're teaching.
Yeah, it's a great way to take if there's a big need in your church, maybe it's a need for push for evangelism or discipleship or leadership development, the pastor to step into that role where typically that may happen on a one-on-one basis, now can be a one on few or a one on many. You're
Mm-hmm.
basically it's a quick way to get vision and culture out and on almost a one-on-one level. Those classes have helped create a culture in a church in just a short amount of time just because of the emphasis on that. So it's a great way to shift culture. It's a great way to build culture through a pastor's class when you do it with intentionality. What is, from a shepherding standpoint, what does your church need? Run after that, find some intentionality, and you'll be surprised how people will respond to it in such a positive way.
Great information. Great having all of you who are viewing or listening to this podcast. You have been listening to the Church Answers podcast, and it's been sponsored by our great friends at Cheney and Associates, the CPA for the church. Hey, if you got any bookkeeping, taxes, anything related to the money side of the church, call on Cheney and Associates. You can see the show notes in there. Great friends, great partners that we have. And this has been great information. Look at the show notes too for Kevin Mills and the book he wrote and the resource that we have connected to it. You can use that in the same way that Jess did. As always, thank you for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.